What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video on my channel, and today we're going to be asking the question, who is the AFL's Michael Jordan? Now, is there actually anyone in the AFL that does stand to be at the same calibre as Michael Jordan's success and his work ethic and everything that he stood for? Well, we're going to find that out because a lot of people had a lot of opinions about this one, and it got me curious. I did watch the whole series of The Last Dance, and while it did inspire me, it did get me thinking, does the AFL in fact have a Michael Jordan-esque player? And I reckon there's a couple of names that do stand out, and I asked the question on Instagram to see what you guys thought, and you came up with some very, very interesting answers. I'm wearing my MND beanie, so make sure you go donate and grab yourself a beanie because it's a very important cause and it happens every year. And we just had the big freeze and it was a very entertaining segment nonetheless, so make sure you get on board that. It's a very comfortable beanie and very stylish. But let's get back into this Michael Jordan of the AFL, and the first name I'm going to pop up is simply one of the best players to play the game. It's Tony Plugger Lockett. Now, a lot of people did mention his name in the questionnaire on Instagram, and he is one of the all-time greats, the best goal kicker you'll see in the game. It was very notorious back in his day playing for Sydney and St Kilda. But I think, you know, have iconic moments like the pig running onto the ground, kicking over 1,200 goals. It does stand to think that maybe he is the greatest all-time goal kicker, but is he the greatest all-time player? That is another question in itself. There's so much criteria you could run through it, but Plugger's right up there. He definitely is in the conversation as the AFL's GOAT. But is he Michael Jordan? That is a whole nother question. Now, a lot of these actually are current day players, and you can argue many other names. You know, Lee Matthews is one that comes to mind. Luke Hodge was another that did pop up. And I thought, yeah, you know, that's a fair equation. You know, 4-time premiership player, he was a premiership captain and a Norm Smith medalist. So there's a lot of answers here, but is there a correct one? Who knows? The next one I'm going to mention, I'm going to do two because not many were mentioned of this, but I thought this was an interesting conversation. Modern day player-wise, I reckon, as they're currently playing, yes, I reckon they're Michael Jordan-esque in their own way. Dustin Martin and Nat Fyfe, both very different, very similar players in terms of how they play their game. They're very hard-working, they're very tough, they're very skillful, and they're game breakers, as Michael Jordan was. But very different in their personalities and very different in the way they go about things. Nat Fyfe is obviously a very, very professional footballer, takes his game very, very seriously, and he presents himself very well in the media when he's both speaking and or at functions, as did MJ when he was doing his thing. Dustin Martin does the same thing, a little bit quiet in terms of his personal life, and certainly does take his professionalism a little bit more seriously, but also knows how to have a good time. So they're very different in their own way, but certainly in terms of the AFL's GOAT, Dustin Martin is currently, I reckon, the best player in the AFL at this current stage. Ever unlikely, but he's certainly one of the best players of our modern era. This next player definitely, I reckon, is in the conversation as one of the best of all time. Buddy Franklin, here in the backyard Charizard, has chimed in and said he is the modern day LeBron of our game, and the way he goes about his football, the way he plays his football is second to none. Very skillful, game breaker, obviously nearing 1,000 goals, and of the modern era, the only player to kick 100 goals, in a season. When you think of it like that, Buddy is definitely right up there, and the way he presents himself, he's a 2-time premiership player. You know, he's one of the best there is, and one of the all-time greats that we've seen. So he's definitely in the conversation and a name worthy of being in this video. The next one is probably the name that everyone has on their lips right now. It's Gary Ablett Jr. His dad was a sensational player, worked hard, was a great footballer, a great forward. But Gary Ablett is a whole nother level. He broke games open. I have never seen a player break open before. Personality-wise, he's a little bit quiet in terms of how he goes about putting himself publicly, and that's by all means very respectful of that. And I think he's as close as you can get to having a Michael Jordan of the AFL. He's the best there is. You know, he went to the Gold Coast to try and build the club there, comes back to Geelong for a fairy tale. His time at Geelong was sensational. You know, a 2-time premiership player, He just works hard. He can break games open. He had 50 disposals in multiple games when he was at the Gold Coast, but he also kicked bags of goals when he was at Geelong. And I don't think you'll ever see anyone as good as Gary Ablett for quite some time. And even still to this day, 34 years of age, and he's dominating games. He has that little spark, the little man. That's my pick. Personally, for me, that's the Michael Jordan of the AFL. Very different to how Michael Jordan went about it in terms of how the NBA persevered with MJ being the number one. The AFL doesn't have a set number one person to promote the game as much. It's more of the brand itself is how we're going to push it towards being the biggest sport there is and pushing it into other countries. But with Gary Ablett showcasing his on-field talent is the perfect promotion for the game, and he's the perfect footballer in the way he goes about it. Left, right kick, silky smooth skills, can break games wide open. As I said, you couldn't have a better ambassador for the game on the field than Gary Ablett Jr. See, they're probably the names you're thinking, right? From a Port Adelaide perspective, if you're going to tell a story like The Last Dance, you're definitely going to pick Robbie Gray. He's one of the best players to play for the Port Adelaide Football Club, and no doubt he's certainly one of the better players in the AFL right now, and he can break games open. Again, a little bit like Gary Ablett, very quiet with his personal life. He keeps things pretty private, and definitely goes about his business very professionally. The other one I'd suggest is Travis Boak, and I reckon all the Port fans watching right now are probably thinking, "Oh, Anthony, there it is." Well, I can't help it, alright? The story in itself would be amazing. The story of sticking with the club in the hardest of times, and the way you build yourself to become one of the best captains the club's seen. Amazing. It's a pity those two don't have a premiership though, and if they get one, then we can start talking properly. Right, before I go, there was one other one that I did have a giggle at, and there's definitely some honourable mentions, and countless people have different opinions of this, but this one stood out. No one is the Michael Jordan of the AFL. When I was doing this and putting this out, thinking about it, I was thinking, I don't know if there is one. And then I saw this comment. You're right. There is no Michael Jordan of the AFL. Is there a reason why? Yes. Because the AFL is a bigger, deeper brand and a more spread out, talent-wise, brand of a sport than the NBA. The NBA, you had players that had talent no one could ever possess again. The AFL has it a little bit different. And that's what we're dealing with. So no one is the Michael Jordan of the AFL. But leave your comments below. Let me know what you think about if there is someone that stands out as the AFL's greatest to you. There's always going to be the greatest of all time AFL-wise. But is there a Michael Jordan? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching this very different video and this little bit of discussion we could have today. And it's definitely a discussion that's going to be happening a little bit more, I reckon. Because after The Last Dance, that's one hell of a documentary. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new for plenty more Port Adelaide and AFL content. My name is Anthony, and as always, can't ThePear.